Welcome to Behind the Veil. I'll reconstruct the chilling case of Mariam Soulakiotis, a Greek old calendarist abbess whose reign of terror at the Panagia Pefkovouno-Gaiatrissa Monastery near Keratea, Greece, from 1939 to 1951, left an indelible mark on criminology and forensic science. Hi guys, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I really could use your help. Do you have a topic for a video? Leave a comment with the suggestion below. Enjoy the rest of the video. Known pejoratively as Mother Rasputin, Soulakiotis exploited her religious authority to perpetrate crimes that combined psychological manipulation, systemic abuse, and murder, resulting in an alleged victim count of 177. Her case offers a profound study in the intersection of religious fanaticism, psychological control, and criminal pathology. Background and rise to power. Mariam Soulakiotis, born Marina Soulakiotou around 1883 in rural Greece, emerged from humble beginnings, possibly working as a factory laborer or on her family's farm. By the early 20th century, she entered a convent, aligning herself with the Greek Orthodox Church. Her trajectory shifted when she became a devoted follower of Archbishop Matthew Karpathakis, a schismatic leader of the Old Calendarist movement which rejected the Greek Orthodox Church's adoption of the Gregorian calendar. In 1927, Soulakiotis and Matthew co-founded the Panagia Pefkovouno-Gaiatrissa Monastery, also known as the Convent of the Virgin in the Pines, in a remote, high-altitude location south of Athens. The monastery was marketed as a spiritual haven and a free tuberculosis treatment center, exploiting the era's limited medical access for the poor. By 1939, as Matthew's health declined, Soulakiotis assumed de facto control, officially becoming abbess in 1950. Her strong character and ruthless discipline positioned her as an unchallenged authority within the isolated convent. Tips. Wikipedia.org, Wiki, Mariam Soulakiotis. Creepy Bonfire, Mystery Files, Crimes Mysteries, Mother Rasputin. The Dark Legacy of Mariam Soulakiotis. Tipis. Historic Mysteries, Mariam Soulakiotis. Criminal modus operandi. Soulakiotis's crimes were a calculated blend of psychological manipulation, financial exploitation, and physical abuse, executed under the guise of religious piety. Her primary scheme targeted wealthy women, spinsters, widows, and families, luring them to the monastery with promises of spiritual salvation or healing from tuberculosis. Once admitted, recruits were subjected to extreme ascetic practices, including prolonged fasting, sleep deprivation, and isolation, which Soulakiotis enforced as tests of devotion. These practices served a dual purpose: breaking victims' psychological resistance and extorting their wealth. New members were required to relinquish their assets under the pretext of a vow of poverty, with Soulakiotis embezzling the proceeds. By her arrest in 1950, she had amassed 300 properties, gold, jewels, and $750,000 in cash, equivalent to millions today. HTTPs. Wikipedia.org, Wiki, Mariam Soulakiotis. HTTPs. Greek City Times.com, 2023-01-26, Mariam Soulakiotis. Tips. Historic Mysteries.com, Mariam Soulakiotis. For those who resisted, Soulakiotis employed torture, including beatings, confinement in isolation cells, and starvation. One survivor, Eugenia Margetti, reported being tortured until she surrendered property worth $118 million, approximately US $947,268 in 2024. Soulakiotis also sent monks to recruit vulnerable individuals across Greece, expanding her pool of victims. Her most egregious crimes involved the deaths of 177 individuals, including 27 premeditated murders and 150 negligent homicides, primarily children and elderly women who succumbed to tuberculosis or starvation due to her refusal to provide medical care or adequate nutrition. The monastery's high-altitude location was falsely promoted as a cure for tuberculosis, leading to preventable deaths. From a forensic psychology perspective, Soulakiotis exhibited traits of a malignant narcissist with psychopathic tendencies. Her ability to manipulate followers through religious authority mirrors cult leaders like Jim Jones, using charisma and fear to maintain control. Her methodical targeting of wealthy victims and use of torture suggest a predatory mindset driven by greed and a need for dominance. Unlike Semyon Mogilevich, whose trafficking empire relied on decentralized networks, Soulakiotis's crimes were intensely personal, with direct oversight of her victims' suffering, reflecting a sadistic element in her pathology. Forensic evidence and investigation. The investigation into Soulakiotis' crimes began with a large-scale police raid on December 4, 1950, involving 85 officers who scoured the monastery over 2 days. The raid uncovered horrific conditions. 46 malnourished children and elderly women were rescued from the basement, many naked and emaciated. The remains of over 170 bodies were discovered, providing critical forensic evidence of systemic abuse and neglect. Forensic pathology likely played a key role in determining causes of death, with autopsies revealing starvation and untreated tuberculosis as primary factors in the negligent homicides. Physical evidence such as isolation cells and confiscated financial records documenting Soulakiotis' wealth corroborated survivor testimonies of extortion and torture. However, the initial charges in 1950 were limited to illegal business activities, exporting olive oil to Cyprus and importing tires, reflecting prosecutorial caution due to insufficient evidence linking Soulakiotis directly to the deaths at the time. As survivors came forward, the case expanded to include homicide, fraud, forgery of wills, blackmail, and torture. The forensic challenge lay in distinguishing premeditated murders from negligent homicides, given the monastery's isolated nature and the lack of medical intervention, which complicated cause-of-death determinations. Trials and sentencing. Soulakiotis' first trial in 1951 focused on illegal trade, resulting in a 26-month sentence. By 1953, survivor testimonies led to a second trial where she was convicted of 7 premeditated murders and sentenced to 10 years. A third trial added 4 years for illegal detention, totaling 14 years to be served concurrently with a life sentence issued in 1952. Throughout her trials, Soulakiotis maintained her innocence, dismissing the charges as satanic fictions and portraying herself as a devout servant of God, often praying and wearing an orthodox icon of Matthew Karpathakis. Her defiance and lack of remorse align with psychopathic traits, as she showed no empathy for her victims. Death and legacy. Soulakiotis died in Avarov prison on November 23, 1954, at age 71, before all her trials concluded, limiting the full scope of her convictions. She was buried on the monastery grounds near Matthew Karpathakis, a symbolic act for her followers, who continued to venerate her as a saint. Despite her death, the sect persisted underground, with reports of young girls vanishing linked to the monastery as late as 1959. As of 2022, the Panagia Pefkovuna Gayatrisha Monastery remains active, with some members still proclaiming Soulakiotis' innocence, highlighting the enduring power of her psychological manipulation. Forensic and psychological insights. From a forensic science perspective, the case underscores the importance of physical evidence, skeletal remains, financial records, and survivor accounts, in building a case against a perpetrator in a closed environment like a monastery. The high victim count, potentially exaggerated to 500 in some claims, required meticulous forensic analysis to differentiate between intentional and negligent deaths. Psychologically, Soulakiotis' ability to exploit religious devotion reflects a sophisticated understanding of group dynamics and obedience, akin to modern cult leaders. Her comparison to Mogilevich highlights a shared reliance on authority to perpetrate mass harm, but her hands-on cruelty distinguishes her as a uniquely malevolent figure. Societal impact. Soulakiotis' case shocked Greece, exposing the dangers of unchecked religious authority and the vulnerability of isolated communities. The betrayal of trust, particularly in a society where religious figures held significant influence, amplified public outrage. Her notoriety as one of Europe's deadliest female serial killers stems from the scale of her crimes and the methodical abuse of power, making her a subject of ongoing criminological study. In conclusion, Mariam Soulakiotis' story is a grim reminder of how charisma, religious zeal, and isolation can converge to enable atrocities. Her case remains a critical reference for forensic psychologists and researchers studying the psychology of power, manipulation, and mass harm in cult-like settings. Thank you for watching and like the video. Until the next time.